Now, back to On the Market on 105.9 The Region.
You're listening to 105.9 The Region. Welcome back to On the Market, York Region's only radio real estate show. I'm station manager Tina Cortez, and my co-host is Asif Khan with RE/MAX Prime Properties.
Thank you, Tina. Joining us next on the show is real estate lawyer and broker owner from RE/MAX Empire Realty, Ricky Rathore. Ricky, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ricky, it's been crazy busy in the market, as you know, and there's a lot of questions between, hey, should I buy a house? Should I buy a condo? And, you know, with a house, people know they're getting the house, whatever's inside, the lot, you know, this dimension by that dimension. But with a condo, what are people actually buying?
So what's common today, and there's various types of condos, but I don't think it's worth having a conversation about the different types. What most people are acquiring today is a residential unit plus an undivided proportionate share interest in the common elements. So what that means is you own the actual space itself within the unit, and then you've got an actual interest in the elements common to the collective unit owners, which include things like the gym, the parking lot, the sauna, the stairwells, hallways, those sorts of things.
And isn't that where our condo fees go?
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever you do within your own unit, for the most part, is up to you. There are rules and regulations and bylaws that regulate what you can and cannot do. But essentially, your maintenance fee is determined by the costs that the corporation is going to fund.
And that's a great point, because you're going to get some condos which will say, hey, our maintenance fees are $450 a month. Other condos saying they're $650 a month. They all include your water, your electricity, maybe. Now most condos have separate meters. But where that extra money comes in is, does it have a pool? Does it have 24-hour security? Does it have underground parking? And that's where you're going to get the extra maintenance fees. It's to maintain those common elements.
Yeah, one of the funniest questions I've ever received from a client is, hey, I've got a membership with a gym. I don't want to use the corporation's gym, so can I just deduct that from my monthly maintenance?
Yeah, can I opt out?
No, you can't.
You can't opt out. All right.
and then when we sell a condo, it's always conditional on the sale of a status certificate. So for our listeners, Ricky, let them know what a status certificate actually is and what they should be looking for within that status certificate.
So a status certificate, in essence, gives you a snapshot of what's happening with the corporation from a financial perspective, from the reserve fund perspective. Every 3 years, you've got an audit where you've got an inspector that comes in and qualifies the lifespan for the existing common elements. And based on that, they decide, they advance rather to the board of directors the information so they can determine and establish whether the maintenance fee should go up or stay where they are or go down, so on and so forth.
So if you have a new build condo, though, you likely wouldn't have a status certificate then, right?
No, you'll still get one.
Oh.
You're still going to get it on closing, but there wouldn't be much to report in there.
And also, one of the things that the lawyers seem to look at in the status certificate, or the question, one of the most common questions, is how much is in the reserve fund? How do you determine if a reserve fund is accurate? And you know, what does it have to do with this 3-year survey? And are there costs that are proportionate to making a status certificate reserve fund adequate?
So when you buy a house, you're responsible for everything. You know, you got to change the roof, that's on you, it's in your pocket. You've got to repave the driveway, that's on you. And a condo, what happens in your unit, your renovations, that's your own business. But as far as the common elements are concerned, you have to maintain those. And so the inspector comes in and says, these are the projected lifespans for these different elements. And so on these critical years, we need X amount of dollars. And based on that information, the board of directors goes back and make sure that you have adequate reserves. It all comes down, Asif, to the number of units within the building, and more importantly, you know, what kind of infrastructure that's in place, because you have to have the reserves in place to make sure that as the building ages, you can repair it as required.
And I guess one of the main things that you look for is special assessments. You want to make sure there's no special assessments, because then you're going to be paying more money. A special assessment is exactly what?
So before we jump into special assessments, there's a couple of things. As an attorney, when I look at a status certificate, I'll look for example, how many units are rented. It's usually reported in the certificate. And some of my buyers are very much concerned with this because they don't want to end up buying into a property where the predominant number of units are rented. And what I find is that that's actually, it's a good concern, because a lot of the landlords, as long as they're getting their money on a monthly basis, their bottom line looks good, they're apathetic. They don't really care what happens on the day-to-day basis as far as the condominium corporation is concerned. And that's when you find these buildings start falling into disarray, and you end up with these situations where you've got these special assessments. So what is a special assessment? Special assessment occurs when the corporation is short on funds, and so they actually bill the individual unit owners for any sort of expenses that they might incur, right? Now, how do we end up at a situation like this? So again, you've got to look at it. And when I'm looking at this status certificate from a legal perspective, I look at lawsuits. Are there any lawsuits? Are there special assessments? Are there adequate reserves from what we can see? And on the basis of that, I report back to the buyer. Let's say, for example, there's a slip and fall and there's $1 million lawsuit on the table. 9 out of the 10 times the insurance company will cover that. But God forbid the insurance company doesn't cover that. All of the unit owners would be responsible for their proportionate share of that lawsuit. Now, to quickly break it down, if I've got, for example, 100 units in a building at 1,000 square feet each, that means that each one of those unit owners owns 1% interest in the building itself, which means that if there's $1 million lawsuit, you could be potentially on the hook for 1% of that lawsuit.
And with lawsuits, I want to clarify, it's very important for us to be able to send our clients to a real estate lawyer to look at status certificates. Quite often, and we've had this conversation offline a lot, and it's, lawyers that aren't well versed with status certificates trying to evaluate a status certificate. And when it comes to lawsuits, Ricky, you'll know this as well, but there's okay lawsuits, as in slip and fall. Every condo corporation has slip and fall lawsuits, which it's not going to affect anything. But if you have lawsuits against the builder and such, those are going to affect the status certificate. So maybe just clarify, good lawsuits and bad lawsuits, if we can say that.
Yeah, so it all comes down to the insurance. And quite frankly, when you're looking at a condominium, a lot of buyers say, hey, I don't care. I'm happy with it. I've got such a good purchase here. Asif and his team helped me acquire this unit at such a good price point that I just don't care because I've got such a good deal on the table. Now, that's fine. My job is to give you legal advice. If you choose not to take it and you go ahead with the deal anyway, that's up to you. But that, I would say, is only the case if you're a cash purchaser. When you're obtaining financing, as a lawyer, when I get the mortgage instructions, it always has a condition that I have to obtain a status certificate and review it and report on any issues.
So the status certificate could be used as a condition in the offer?
Oh, it's always, well,
it always
absolutely.
Is?
You'll make the offer conditional, but some buyers will say, no, we don't want to look at it. We don't want to lose the unit because we've got such a good deal.
I see.
But what I'm going to tell you as a lawyer in writing to make sure you have informed consent of this is that if something comes out, if you don't get the seller to provide it, you will have to provide it. You're going to have to pay for it because ultimately the lender might say, hey, unless you've got the status certificate and you're happy with it, we're not going to fund this deal. And all of a sudden now you haven't put a condition in there. The seller hasn't provided it. You're 5 days from closing. And I give the client a call saying, I need a status certificate. Now you've got to rush order it, pay double the fees to get that status certificate. And then if there's an issue, I have to report to the lender. Lender might come back and say, we pull out. It's too bad.
Oh, my.
Yeah, with status certificate, you need about a week to order the status certificate. It's usually about 10 days. You can put a rush on it for an extra $100. I think it's $100 to order it normally and $200 if you want to put a rush on it. And you can get it, but we don't recommend that any of our clients go into a condo purchase without a status certificate.
Yeah, and just to touch on that really quickly as well, it doesn't just relate to purchases. If you're refinancing your condo, you've got a mortgage with a lender now, and you want to transfer that mortgage, you want to pay it out and put in another mortgage, get more equity out of the property, what have you. Even in the refinance, the lender will require a status certificate.
Great information, Ricky. And with status certificates or condo purchases, if our listeners want to get more information on their status or send you the status for review, where can they get a hold of you?
They can contact me directly at 416-731-8478. We're happy to help.
When we come back, we get to your real estate questions and this week's hot listing. And just a reminder, if you missed any part of our show, go to 1059theregion.com. You're listening to 1059 The Region. Stay with us.
Need to connect with Asif